All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our second social studies unit. This is our first lesson of our second social studies unit. So, in our first unit, we discussed the First Peoples of Canada, with a special emphasis on the Indigenous peoples of the eastern part of the country. Today, this unit, we're going to discuss the first European peoples to arrive in North America. All right. So, and also their first interactions with the First Nations people, First Peoples who are already here. Okay. So, we'll start by giving a little bit of background as to what Europe looked like around this time. So, this is Europe in 1500. All right. England, France, Spain, Scotland, some places you probably recognize. The Holy Roman Empire, which doesn't exist anymore. Lithuania, which still exists, but's way smaller. Hungary is also way smaller. Venetian Republic. Some of these places don't exist anymore. The ones we are going to be most concerned about are England and France. We're going to talk about Spain a little bit, and then other players in North America include Portugal, and they didn't exist yet in 1500, but a few decades later, we're going to get the Netherlands in here. But we're not really going to talk about Spain, Portugal, and the Netherlands that much. England and France will be our main focus. Okay? So, when we think about, people traveling from Europe to North America, we think of, maybe folks like Columbus or I don't know, Jacques Cartier, people we're going to talk about shortly. But long before any of them, there were a group of people called Vikings. All right, and the Minnesota football team is named after them. So if you haven't heard of Vikings before, they were almost like pirates before there were pirates in a lot of ways. They lived in what is now Sweden and Norway up here, and they did a lot of adventuring for the sake of adventuring. And then they left Sweden, Norway, and they came to a land made of ice and a land that's relatively green, which they then reverse the names of. So, because Greenland is mostly ice and Iceland is relatively green, and then they switch the name. So this is Iceland, this is Greenland. All right? And they came to Greenland, and because Greenland is all ice, not a lot of plants grow there. Their boats are made of wood. They need to repair them. No wood in Greenland, so they would sail with the boats that didn't need repairing this way to North America, come to what we call Newfoundland today, and they would pick up wood here and then go back and repair their boats. They didn't really stick around long term, and they didn't stick around for a long time. This was about in the year 1000, so over 1,000 years ago now, 1,020 years ago now, and they were just largely looking for wood to fix their boats. They didn't really tell anybody else in Europe about this. Like, there were some stories about this land beyond Greenland, but most of them were seen as like mythical. They weren't seen as real. It wasn't until much later that they found out that the Viking stories were true. All right, something else we're going to talk about. Europe at the time, there was something called the Silk Road, and there's the blue part is the part that goes over water, and the red part is the part that goes over land. So it was a road that allowed silk, spices, tea, and precious stones like gold and diamonds and things like this to go from China and India all the way to Europe. All right? In the late 1400s, and before this too, but especially in the late 1400s, there were some issues with the Silk Road. First of all, it would take years, actual years, to get from one end to the other. Also, a lot of it, you'll notice here that it's kind of brown-ish on the map. That's desert. It's very dangerous terrain to cross. And then there were bandits, people here who would attack you if you were going down the Silk Road, trying to steal your stuff so they could in turn sell it for more. So the Silk Road was a very long and dangerous route. It was the only way to get from India and China to Europe. So, we look at a map. Europe is over here. Sure, you could go this way, largely overland to China and India, over here. But some people decided, well, maybe we can find another way. So they started by trying to go around the end of Africa. Well, it turns out that this is very dangerous. The water here is very rough and very hard to travel through. So, okay, well, we can't travel around Africa. It's not really safe to do that either. Up to this point, the people of Europe thought the world was flat, and they thought it ended about here. Right? They thought they would go here, and you'd get to the edge, and then your boats would fall off. Around this time, some people got the idea that, well, everything else is round. We look up in the sky, all the other planets are round, the sun is round, the stars seem round. Why wouldn't we be round? Maybe the Earth is round. So they say, well, China and India are over here. Maybe we can go around with the long way. Now, the people of Europe did not know that any of this existed. They thought they were just going to do this, sail this way, and end up over here. None of the danger of going around Africa, none of the deserts or the pandits through here. Should be easy, right? Christopher Columbus, a largely controversial figure for a whole host of reasons, but we could do a whole course on that by itself. We're not super interested in Columbus in this course, but he was an Italian sailor who worked for Spain. In 1492, he was trying to find a way to India by going the long way around, like I just mentioned. What did he actually run into? Well, he ran into a continent that, to this point, the people of Europe did not know existed. In fact, when he landed here, he landed in these islands here. And when he landed, he thought he was in India. Didn't know left from right. Okay, if you have an internet connection, watch this goofy video. All right, I'll post it in the Google Classroom as well. So pause it here, watch this goofy video, and then we can move on. All right, so moving forward, we're talking about John Cabot, who you saw in that video with all the fish jumping on the boat, and he crosses himself and talks about how there's fish there from the end of time. So he's an Italian sailor who worked for England. The English crown told him to go forth and conquer new lands. Alright, so when he headed west toward North America, he found tons and tons of codfish that were just literally leapt onto his boat. There were so many off the coast of what is now Newfoundland, and he claimed Newfoundland for England. That is what he did. Now, there were already people living in Newfoundland, and next lesson? Yeah, next lesson you will read a little more about what happened there, how that contact went. But for now, we're going to talk about what we need to know is John Cabot came from England to Newfoundland. He wasn't even the first European in Newfoundland because the Vikings beat him there by almost 500 years. And he found tons and tons of fish off the coast. And like I mentioned, yeah, he was given a commission by the King of England to conquer and occupy new lands for the English crown in 1497. So almost 1500. And he found Newfoundland, and quote-unquote, claimed it for England. All right, push and pull factors. This is the last little bit for this lesson. So a push factor is something that pushes you toward something, right? So, for example, if my house is on fire, that would be a push factor to get me to leave, right? Because it's pushing me out of the house, the fire. A pull factor is something that pulls you towards something, right? So, for example, or here's a better example. It's cold outside. The cold outside would push me into my house. That would be, the cold is a push. A pull factor would be the fact that I'm hungry and the food is inside my house, right? So it pulls me in because that's where the food is, right? A pull factor pulls you towards something, and a push factor pushes you away from something. So, some factors. So we have the disruption of the Silk Road. We had better navigational instruments, so the compass was invented, which made it easier to travel over water for long distances. People in Europe wanted more silk and spices. Sea travel around the tip of Africa, like we talked about before, was dangerous. Some people realized that the world wasn't flat, like I said. And European countries were excited at the prospect of finding new lands, right? So they kind of were drawn to this idea of finding new land that they had not ever seen before. And that is last time. Okay, or next time, pardon me. Okay, so these are, I'm not going to tell you whether they're push or pull. That's going to be for you to decide when you do this assignment. So, there was that list, and that exact same list is also in the note. There were 6 of them. You're going to decide which 3 are push and which 3 are pull factors. All right, and sort them into this chart. Then you're going to fill in this table to tell me about the Vikings, Columbus, and Cabot. So, when, where they came from, why they came, and what they actually found. And then this last question, tell me whether you think John Cabot was an explorer or an invader. Was he someone who was just going around to conquer new places, or was he someone who was looking for new places? Right? There's not necessarily a wrong answer here. I want you to pick one, and then I want you to give me 2 reasons. They don't have to be super complicated. Just tell me if he's an explorer or invader. Write it here. It's your opinion. And then give me 2 reasons for your opinion. All right? And if you need more space here, there's lots of page, so use it. All right, so that is your task for today. Okay, I think you should be able to do this without too much trouble. If you need anything, you know where to email me. Until then, take care of yourselves and stay safe.